Are you tired of the same old pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 3,000 hours of the best pro wrestling events from over 100 of the biggest names in the industry from over 15 countries around the globe. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
This is your main man RJ from the Ringside Rant, heard only on the Visionaries Wrestling Network. So go over and subscribe across all your major platforms, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher to hear every great interview I have every Monday on the Visionaries Wrestling Network. Go over and follow the show's page on Twitter @_Ringside Rant. Follow the network's page @BizWrestleNet. And, as always, embrace the vision.
If you like podcasts and you are listening to Backbreaker Media, then you should listen to me, Chris Parrish,
and myself, Manoy,
and the Sounds of Struggle, because we are literally the most entertaining duo you'll ever come across in Western Canadian wrestling, baby.
We talk about things like wrestling
and other sports we like.
Wrestling.
But we won't talk about other sports that we don't like, because it's not that kind of podcast.
Like wrestling.
I mean, we like hockey.
And wrestling.
And we like football.
And wrestling.
And we also like to drink beer.
While wrestling.
Well, not while wrestling, but while watching wrestling.
Yes.
Yeah. If you want to get into a conversation with Maniac and Chris Parrish, then you need to tune into the Sounds of Struggle live on Backbreaker Media.
Every Thursday.
Is when we hope to drop, but sometimes Mike Malawany doesn't do his job right.
Or we're too drunk to forget.
Yeah, that happens too.
Yeah.
He can bleep out the swear word, because we weren't supposed to do that.
Oh,
but
I'll try not to swear. I can't do it.
Yeah. Let's face it, the two of us, we're real.
And spectacular.
And we're a little bit of all right.
Yeah.
We're also strugglicious.
That we are.
That was kind of the key. We're supposed to be strugglicious.
Oh, sorry, I'm drunk.
Yeah. So, if you don't want to listen to us, then no. You're stupid, because we're entertaining. And if you want to listen to us, then come listen to us on Backbreaker Media.
Yeah.
Later,
he said.
Later, bitches.
The following advertisement is sponsored by Beercade YEG.
Hello. You are listening to a commercial for the podcast Over the Top Rope,
the flagship podcast of the Win Column Sports Network,
as well as a proud member of Backbreaker Media.
Again, this podcast is sponsored by Beercade YEG.
You can find us pretty well anywhere that podcasts are played, including on the iTunes,
Podbean,
the Google Play,
SoundCloud,
and on wincolumnsports.ca for all your previews,
reviews,
and breaking news from the world of professional wrestling. Tune in every Friday on Backbreaker Media, a member of Win Column Sports.
Hey guys, how's it going? This is Kyle Shaw, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Monday Night Shaw on the Backbreaker Media Network through Win Column Sports. This week on the show, I sat down with What About Ivan. It was cool, and I really enjoyed talking to Ivan. It was really awesome to sit down and talk to somebody who is an announcer and has been doing announcing for a long time and is held in high regard as one of the best announcers in Alberta. if you want to see What About Ivan do his thing, he does all the PWA shows. I believe their next show is going to be the big anniversary show at the Nate Gym, and that show is going to be featuring Jeff Cobb, a huge superstar from the independent scene. And then, of course, it's also going to have TJ Wilson there. And TJ Wilson is also known as WWE's Tyson Kidd. So that should be exciting, too. I don't believe there's an RCW show that night, so I might go check that out. We do have a number of RCW shows coming up, though. Alright, first up, March the 2nd, RCW is in Gibbons. Then, March 8th, we return to Calgary, and it's been announced that the main event is going to be Impact Wrestling superstar Moose against 240 pounds of pure nuclear bicep, Bryce the Slammer Sova. So that's going to be pretty cool to see. Don't miss that show. If you're in Calgary, I mean, definitely be there. If you are in Edmonton, you can come check us out the next night, March the 9th. Moose is also going to be wrestling on that show. The following weekend, March the 16th, we're going to be in Vegreville. The weekend after that, we're back in Calgary, and that's going to be on March the 22nd. Then, the last weekend in March, we are going to be in Radway once again. We had a show there. It was the big-time indie dream match between MRB and Pride that saw interference from Chris Parrish. So that was a really great match and a really great show. So if Radway is not that far away, neither is Gibbons. So these places are not that far away. If you want to make the drive, it's only like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe. Depends how fast you drive, I suppose. Then the final day in March, March 30th, RCW is going to be in Edmonton, once again, our home base here in Edmonton. So those are our upcoming shows. Want to thank everybody once again for tuning in to Monday Night Shaw. And I did say that I had like a announcement to make, and that's just that I'm going to be doing more podcasting. So next week, you will be getting like a bonus with Cameron Stevens from Dirty Inc. I know I already did a podcast with Dirty Inc., which was Cam Stevens, Cody Chimera, and Mike Jones. But this time it's one-on-one, me and Cody, or me and Cameron, sorry. And it's much more of a like scatterbrain podcast for sure. Like, we didn't talk a whole lot about wrestling, to be honest. There's a lot of like, oh, what kind of music do you like? What movies do you like? That kind of stuff. So tune into that to just get a little bit of a more personal note from Cameron Stevens there. And that is going to be next week, next Monday. So listen in. It'll be awesome. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Take it away, Kyle Shaw on the In the Past and the spectacular What About Ivan?
Hello, friends. This is Spencer Love, the host of Conversations with Love, the exclusive one-on-one interview series sweeping the nation, or at the very least, the great province of Alberta, Canada. Tune in weekly to Backbreaker Media, a proud member of the Win Column Sports Network, as I host a member of the independent wrestling community here in Alberta, or wherever the hell I feel like interviewing somebody from. You can only find it on Backbreaker Media, a proud member of the Win Column Sports Network, and proudly sponsored by Beercade YEG.
Okie dokie, folks. This is Kyle Shaw, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Monday Night Shaw. And I thought to myself, who could I have on as a guest this week? Cam Stevens offered, so I was like, oh, what about Cam Stevens? I'm talking to Moose from TNA, so I was like, what about Moose from TNA? And then, here, lo and behold, what about Ivan?
Hey,
Ivan, buddy, how you doing?
Good. You?
Good. It's been a long time in the making, man. I've been announcing for RCW for like a year now, and I don't think we've ever like officially met or anything.
Yeah, I don't think so, no.
Ivan is the ring announcer for PWA here in Edmonton. Fantastic promotion. Lots of great guys over there. Ivan, I've heard that you also announced for roller derby and whatnot.
Yeah, actually, I was one of the first announcers in Canada for the rebirth of roller derby. So a few years back, probably about 10 years ago now, it kind of came back as a thing in Canada, and the first interleague game I was the announcer for. So I spent a lot of time with roller derby, did some work with the juniors there, even got to announce roller derby in Hawaii before, which was really cool.
That sounds rad.
Yeah, I've done a lot.
Did they trans you in for that?
For the Hawaii one, they just got you a place to stay, essentially. So you had to cover your own stuff, but it was
still a hell of an opportunity.
Still an opportunity, yeah.
So is that where you got your start in announcing, is in roller derby?
No, actually I got my start in wrestling. I'd never announced before, never thought about doing anything. I actually ended up at an RCW show, and I know there's a lot of people who've heard the story or know the story.
I have not heard the story, and I don't know the story, so please indulge.
Yeah, I was at an RCW show, had a bit to drink, as I tend to sometimes do.
It's one of my favorite things to do at RCW shows.
For sure. And I was sitting there, and their announcer, I can't recall who it was, but he was just awful. Like, absolutely,
Was it Alex?
I'm not. I don't even know who it was.
Okay.
But I just remember that I was like, this guy's awful. I could do better than this. And someone sitting near me was like, well, why don't you? I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. Like, I've never announced, but I know I could be better than this person.
Was the person sitting beside you like somebody in the business?
I was actually a sister of one of the guys in the business.
Oh, okay.
And so, she kind of she said, do that. And so I actually talked with Squig about it. I was like, hey, your guy sucks. Like, just, just give me a shot, because it can't be worse than him, right? And so he said, yeah. And so technically, my debut should have been RCW, but then with the PWA, they had an announcer named Drew Dalby at that time.
Okie dokie.
And he was leaving. And they didn't have anyone to fill in for him. Like, somehow it just slipped through the cracks, like, hey, we're going to need an announcer.
Gotcha.
And I'd become friends with some of the wrestlers and stuff. And so I know at that show, someone was like, hey, why don't we use Ivan? He's going to be announcing for RCW anyway, so, like, let's just call him up.
So basically, they were like, oh, we need an announcer, and somebody was like, what about Ivan?
Yeah, although that's not where that's from. But
yeah, no, I'm going to ask you about that, too.
That's totally what it was like. But yeah, and so they're like, yeah, what about Ivan? And so I still remember I got a phone call from one of my friends who's a wrestler, and he's like, hey, are you coming to the show tonight? I'm like, I don't know. I think I might just relax at home. Like, I wasn't even going to go. He's like, yeah, you need to wear a suit and bring some note cards, because you're going to announce tonight. And so, like, out of the blue, and I mean, PWA kind of has that reputation of having a lot of, like, more veteran guys, I guess. Especially at that point, there was guys like Harry Smith and TJ Wilson and Duke Durango and Phoenix Taylor and Marky, like lots of guys who'd been around for a while, really well respected. And so I was kind of like, well, shoot, I don't know if I can do this, but whatever. So I showed up and I did it. And afterwards I'm like, whatever, like, if I don't get called back, not a big deal. Like, I can say I did it. It was fun.
Yeah.
And then they brought me back, and I kept announcing for them. And at the same time, I started announcing with RCW as well.
Oh, really?
So I was doing both shows, and then through doing all the wrestling, I there was some roller derby people when this was all getting started, and they ended up at a wrestling show, and so they saw me and approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing announcing. And I mean, ever since then, it's just been growing. Like, I've done MMA for a little while out in BC and Yellowknife.
Oh, nice.
Don't do that anymore, but yeah, no, it all basically started one day because I just saw an awful announcer and said I could do better.
That's amazing, man. That's really cool. So, like, when you first, like, your first night in,
Yeah.
I remember my first night was a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Like, I was awful. Like, terrible. How did your first day go?
It wasn't great. And I mean, right from the get-go, because at first they said, okay, we're going to give you some music to come out to, like, we're going to introduce you as a new person of, like, here, and I'm waiting, and there was an issue with the sound, and there was no sound, and so I'm standing there because, like, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
they told me to wait, and I think it was Chris Steele was just like, just go. Like,
Yeah.
So, you know, there was no big build-up, there was no nothing, there was just kind of me walking through the curtain. And yeah, I mean, I just did it. I didn't really know how to do it at the point because in the past, a lot of the announcers had been trained radio guys. Like, you see a lot of those guys doing it. And then you see a lot of guys who are like hardcore love wrestling and like they know everything about
Yeah.
it. And like they're like I like wrestling, don't get me wrong, but I'm not by any means like a wrestling guy. Like, there's people who know so much more than me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I wasn't trained on how to do it professionally, and I wasn't, like, I didn't know how you were supposed to do it as a wrestling person. So I just made up my own thing, and that was it. Yeah, like I said, it wasn't great, and I wasn't sure if they were going to call me back after the first time, but they did, and yeah, it's just been going great from there on.
Right on, right on. Did you have to hang around the shows for like a little while beforehand and help with ring or anything like that?
I mean, I used to do that anyways. I knew some of the guys. I've been friends with a lot of them for some years, just met up throughout the years kind of thing. And so if I'd go to the show, I'd usually help out whatever I could,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, I never felt like I was expected to do it, but I just always would.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of the thing, you know, I tend to, nowadays, I take my time, like what I need to do to prepare myself for the shows, I do. But if I'm ready to go and I have spare time, I'll help with setting up chairs, I'll help, whatever I can do, you know.
How far ahead of time do you normally get your like match orders and stuff?
It really depends on the show, and it depends on what the promoter has. And I mean, as you know, things will change the night
yeah.
of, right? You know, bad weather, especially nowadays in Alberta, that changes very quickly. So typically, I mean, you get your finalized sheet that night, right? You find out who's going to be.
Oh, they give you a sheet.
Typically, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know, we have the card order and, you know, any changes that had to happen throughout the day. So yeah.
I hear you. Yeah, usually like Squig will write down the card for me, and
Right.
then he'll give it to me, and then what I do is I just copy it onto a piece of paper, and I write down everybody's hometown and their weight, and
Right.
I just kind of look at it right before I go in the ring, and then, you know.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
like,
they
there's
don't.
literally times where I've had like 5 minutes to write my script, and
Yeah.
and then Squig comes back after I've got like the first 4 matches written already, and he's like, "Oh, this has changed." You know, these things happen. I'm sure you've had to deal with the same sort of. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I kind of do it as close to start time as I can, just because I know stuff will change all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever had to deal with like a situation in the ring where something happens and you had no idea?
Yeah, there's been, I mean, throughout the years, there's been a lot of times like that, you know, because it's wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes the guys, you know, people get excited. You know, I've done a show once where we had fans getting into the ring trying to fight the guys.
Really?
It wasn't an in-city show. It was out in the country. But we just had these people hopping up, and you know, everyone dealt with it really well. But at the same time, it was one of those things that you just have no idea about, right?
Yeah. The show on Saturday that we did in Edmonton, after the show, some jerk off got in the ring and did like a somersault. And I, like, for a second there, I was like, is this one of the wrestlers? And then I looked at him, I was like, no, it's clearly not. But I was just like, get out of the ring.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, right, is the fans, you know, they've just spent all night being hyped up, watching, like, these athletes do what they do, and sometimes they get a little too excited about it, right?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
you can understand it, but at the same time, you know, it's not something you want to see happen, right?
Yeah, it's definitely gotten to the point now where, like, if people ask me after the show, oh, can I get in the ring and take a photograph? It's no, you can't. Sorry. If I let one person do it, then I gotta let everybody do it, you know? And there's been some situations where it's like, oh, you let one person do it, and then all of a sudden you got 20 kids in there having a fucking battle royal, you know?
Yeah. I mean, usually with anything like that, I just give them very clear instructions. I'm like, yeah, you can come up, stand on the ropes, do this. Like, don't get in, don't run, don't, you know.
Yeah.
And I found that for the most part, if you're very clear with what you're allowing them to do, people usually don't push it too hard.
Yeah. What about, like, have you got any stories about, like, 50-50 draws? Like, do you bring somebody in the ring to draw your 50-50 for you?
When we do 50-50s, yeah, any shows I've done with those, yeah, it's usually grab someone. A lot of times, if there's someone I know sitting in the crowd, I'll tend to get them to do the draw, because then at least it's someone who's not a part of the show, but it's not, you know, it's someone who I know isn't going to be rude or do something stupid. You know?
Complete, like, risk. Like, for the longest time, like, I've actually gotten to the point now where I'm just going to do it myself. For one thing, it's taking up a lot of time on the shows, but for another thing, like, I would usually get children to come in the ring to do it, just because it's like, oh, this is a cool experience for a kid to come in the ring, right? So it was like, that'd be cool. So one time I had this kid come in the ring. I mean, I already told the story on the podcast about how I accidentally backhanded one of the 50-50 kids. That was embarrassing. But this kid came in the ring, and he went up on all four corners like he was Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then was like, give me the mic. And I was like, no.
How old was this kid?
This kid he's probably like 10 years old.
Oh,
it was his birthday too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like I sang happy birthday to him, but like I felt bad that I was like, no, you can't have the microphone, but like I have no idea what you're gonna say, right?
Yeah.
So who are some of your favorite, like, people to deal with in the business?
I mean, there's a close-knit group of us that, you know, good friends, like, all the time. Guys like Marky, great friends with him. Michael Richard Blaze, BVD, tremendous guys. You know, even, like, the Omen Gabriel. You know, and they all kind of give me feedback, which is good.
Yeah.
You know, I always appreciate that. I think probably, like, no one's ever, like, trained me on how to do anything. Like, I've made everything I do, I've done it because I want to do it. The best, I think, closest to kind of training might have been Johnny Devine.
Oh, okay.
And now Devine have you met him before?
I've never met him, no.
Okay. Devine's like a great guy. He's got a good mind for it, but he'll oftentimes give you just a load of information.
Oh, okay.
And so you don't want to follow everything he says, but he'll give you some really good stuff. And there was one time where it was fairly early on. Like, I'd already been announcing for a few years and already kind of done my stuff. And he was telling me some stuff, and I said, yeah, okay, like, you know, not going to change the way I do it. But then one thing he told me was, he's like, just remember, however excited you get them at the start of the show, that's where they're going to be for the show. So he's like, if you come out and it's dead quiet and they're not excited, he's like, that first match has got to work so much harder to try and get the fans into it. He said, if you come out and if you can get the whole crowd going, he's like, that first match through the ring, he's like, it's so easy for them.
That's a good piece of advice.
And that was the one thing, and I always credit Johnny Devine for that, because like I said, he will give you a ton of information, but that was one of the things he told me that really stuck with me, was that whatever level you set the crowd at is where they're going to be. And so always in the back of my mind, I always kind of think that way, you know, that when I go out there, you know, I'm trying to get the crowd up to a certain level of where I feel they're ready to go. And if that means I have to chit-chat with them, if that means I have to, you know, not start the first match immediately, like, it's a lot of reading the crowd, but it is, you have to know how excited they are and to make sure that they're ready for that match.
So do you do like a warm-up for the show? Like, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll go, okay, this side, let's hear you cheer, and then every side of the ring, and then everybody in the building, let's hear it, right? Like,
yeah, you know, a lot of times I do it. It very much depends on what the night's going to be like and how I'm feeling and how I think everyone's doing. So I don't necessarily have a set startup that I do. You know, I'll chat with some fans. I'll work the crowd a little bit if it needs to. But I mean, if I come out there and they're hot and they're excited and they're ready for that first match, they don't need to hear me.
No.
Right? Like you're part of the show, you're a big part of the show, but you're not the show.
Yeah.
And so if they're excited and they're ready to go, I'm not going to waste anyone's time. I'm going to get us right to that first match. I'm calling for the music. I'm getting going. But if people were kind of slow getting to their seats and maybe they're chit-chatting with their neighbors, I want to give them more time, you know, let them know that they can be loud, that this is the time to start yelling and screaming. And
For sure, man. Yeah, I'm just like, it's cool that you're here, and like I'm getting all these perspectives from you, because like I say, I'm very new. How long have you been ring announcing for?
Started in 2006.
Oh wow.
So you can do the math on that.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, and like I said, throughout my time, I've done wrestling, roller derby, mixed martial arts, boxing, pillow fighting.
Pillow fighting?
Pillow fighting was amazing.
How do you get into the pillow fighting announcing?
It was I think 2 or 3 times a bar was doing it. So it happened at a bar, but it was really neat because it's not what you think of with pillow fighting. Like, you know, it's not like two people like smacking each other, whatever. The rule was you could do anything, but the pillow had to be between you and your opponent. So you would see people who would take one end of the pillow, wrap it around, like swing it so it wrapped around the person's legs, and then lift up. So you were doing like leg sweeps with it.
The person's taking a bump?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And because there was mats and everything.
Oh wow.
And so like if you could get like choke holds out of it and everything.
When I say person, like, is this all just like going down between a bunch of like scantily clad women, or?
Yeah, it was all women, various degrees of dress and stuff though. Like there was some who were wearing very little, and then there was some who were, you know, pretty covered up.
So like more conservative.
Yeah, but yeah, it was really athletic and really kind of cool to see.
Was that a lucrative endeavor?
No, that was definitely just for fun, but
gotcha.
As far as lucrative announcing, MMA is, I mean, that's where the money is. That's where the big bucks are. That was really cool, going from wrestling, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun and I love it, and like I'd love to keep doing it forever, but you know, wrestling, you don't get paid a huge amount of money.
No,
but then going to MMA, you were getting paydays that were like legitimate money.
Enough to like live on if you did it regularly?
If you did it regularly, easily, yeah. And you know, you'd get flown out to venues, you'd get, you know, it was like the cool star kind of treatment, right?
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, the company I was with, I did start with them, and MMA, kind of like wrestling, more and more promotions started coming up, and they just couldn't keep up with all of the cost, essentially.
Gotcha.
So they're still running. They don't run as many events as they used to, and they, like I said, they're based out of BC, and they used to get me out there all the time. But then, from cost-wise, they ended up just going with a local guy instead of bringing me out.
Flying someone in.
Yeah, and they just were kind of like, they were very straightforward with it. They said, you know, like, we love having you, but like it's a cost issue, and we can't keep doing this. And I said, I understand. Like, and I mean, and that was really fun. I'd never really watched MMA until I was in the ring, which was cool.
Yeah, it's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah, it's a different kind of thing, and I mean, I'm really thankful for all the referees, because they helped me out so much when I first started there, because I never watched it, so I had no idea what any of the holds were called. So, you know, for like when you're announcing your winner, right, you'd be like, and your winner by, and I'd be like, lean over to the ref and be like, what the fuck was that called?
Yeah.
And the ref would tell me like, oh, that's blah blah blah, and he'd tell me whatever the move was called, right? So the referees were all really awesome and really helpful.
Was that like King of the Cage? What was the organization?
No, it was 5-Star Fight League.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of them.
Yeah, they started up. They were doing really well, and they treated everyone really well, which differentiated them from a lot of the other companies. So even the fighters and everyone, they had a lot of respect for the sport. And from what I understand, there's a lot of other companies out there who are just out there to make money. They don't care about taking care of people. And that was one of the big things that a lot of people noticed. And they were really caring about all of their staff. I mean, down to the guys who were loading the ring or the cage up at night. Just wonderful people, you know. If I could be, I'd still be announcing with them, but...
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Going back to the Pillow League thing.
Yeah.
Did they have like gimmick names and stuff?
Yeah. I think it was a charity thing. I'm trying to remember. Like, I think it was raising money for something. And I know at least one time Drew Dalby announced with me, which was a lot of fun, because then we did basically heel-face commentary on it as well, okay. Which was a lot of fun, you know, getting to hang out in the bar and just do that, right?
So did you guys commentate over the live mics?
Yeah. So
that sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it was really fun, but I haven't heard anything going on like that lately, so... but yeah, no, I mean, I do any announcing that anyone wants, basically, right? And it's... that's kind of what I've been doing, and I always just push just the professionalism of stuff, you know. People know what they're getting with me.
Yeah.
You know that I'm going to come to your shows prepared. I'm going to come knowing as much as I can, and it's going to be, you know, it's different from a lot of other announcers, and that's the thing that I think kind of set me apart. Like I said, how other announcers had been, you know, professionally trained in radio, and other people were very much into wrestling.
Yeah.
Whereas with me, I didn't have that, so I made announcing my thing, where I made that into, I didn't know enough about the sports or how to do it the right way, quote unquote. So I did it my way, and that's kind of the way I've just always done it.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat. Like, I have no broadcasting background at all. I mean, I have a little bit of a improv comedy background, so I was used to being in front of people and performing a little bit. But like, even my first show, like you say, was a disaster. Like, we were driving down and I was riding with Dead Zone and Squig, and I told Dead Zone, I get this improv background, I think I'll be all right. And he was like, it's not the same, kid, Then after the show, like, I was like, I really want to do this again, even though like it was honestly, like, they gave me the tag team champions of pretty much every promotion in like prairies in Canada was Dick Blood and Billy Blaze.
Oh, okay.
Those fellas.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were on the first show, and they basically held like 14 sets of tag championships, and they wanted me to announce every single one of them.
Oh, okay, yeah. So some people do that.
They wrote down this paragraph of things, and I was like, it's a challenge. I'm up for it. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like I say, it didn't go well, and after the show, when we're riding back, I'm like, do you have any advice for me, Dead Zone? He's like, yeah, don't do this again.
Well, hey, that's his opinion, because...
100%. And, like, he's just ribbon, too, right? Like, but, yeah, no, like, it did take a while for me to be comfortable. Was that the same sort of thing for you? Like...
No, not really. Like, I would say 2 shows in, I just kind of did my own thing, and it just resonated with the fans. I just kind of was who I am normally, but louder, and that was it, right?
That's I'm in the exact same boat as you, bud. Like,
and yeah, it's been a lot of fun getting to work with a lot of the people that are starting out, and little ways down the way, you see them on TV, or you see their action figures or all that stuff, and that's really cool.
That's got to be awesome.
And and then when any of the guys who have been around, who come on the local tours and stuff, that's always great too. Getting to meet some of those people.
For sure.
And that's always fun as well. But
who are some of your favorite names that you've been able to announce?
Oh man, I could have brought my list. Let me see. Samoa Joe is like a great dude.
Oh, really?
Like, he's funny. He's hilarious. T.J. Wilson, Tyson Kidd. He's awesome. Natalia. Let's see, who else has been around? Cody Rhodes. Frankie Kazarian was good, and Jay Lethal was a lot of fun. We had Mick Foley. There's any number of guys.
Wow.
We had Raven out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he actually did that where you were talking about the whole long list of. But going back to like the very start of his wrestling, like literally, like
I held the Portland, Oregon Intercontinental.
No, 100%.
Oh,
like
geez.
It was like one computer page, and so because he first we talked and he told me like to do this, and I'm like, okay, and then I looked at it, and like I said, like. I kind of read the crowd and whatever, and I'm like, this is dumb, I'm not doing this. And so I read, like, I kind of skimmed it a little bit, just to make it going. And he was so pissed. Like, he grabbed the mic, and he started just ripping into me.
Oh, boy.
Like, in the ring. And it was really kind of funny because the crowd turned on him and started chanting, "Fuck you, Raven." And like backstage, a lot of the people afterwards, like I had people come up and they're like, "Man, like he shouldn't have done that." Blah, blah,
He shouldn't have done that?
Yeah. And I'm like, whatever, it happened. And then we did another show together, and so this time I read his whole gimmick out in the ring. Like, I'm a professional, like I'm gonna do it, but. And then it just happened that one of the locker rooms, it was he and I were the only ones in there. Like he was main eventing, obviously.
Okay.
And we were the only two left in the locker room, but, farthest away as you could be, right? Like he was on one side, I was on the other. And we were just changing. Like I didn't say anything to him, he wasn't saying anything to me. And then we just kind of started talking and, kind of came to terms a little bit, I guess.
Okay.
So we kind of chatted a bit, and he was like, yeah, I just, like, he explained his point of view, I explained mine, like we discussed it a little bit.
Okay.
And I had my copy of his whole list of everything, and so he asked if he could have a copy of it, like, because it was already printed out. I said, yeah, that's fine. So I mean, it was okay. Like we kind of essentially made up, but
so that was...
no one saw that in public, right? Like all everyone saw was like him and I kind of.
Was that like the worst, like the most negative experience you had, like announcing a name?
I would say probably.
Yeah.
And mostly just it was weird, just because like now I don't feel the negativity to him, because like we did kind of have that chat afterwards, and it did work out, right? So
sure.
I don't feel any negativity about that. As far as other names, I don't think there's been anyone that's been very challenging, I guess.
Have you ever announced Jeff Jarrett?
No.
That was a challenge for me.
Yeah, I heard some stories about him before.
Yeah, I approached him like 10 minutes before the show was supposed to start, because I was a bit nervous, right? Like, I'm a wrestling fan. And I knew what his hometown was, but I just needed, like, his weight, right?
Oh, okay.
So I just walked up, like I do with all the boys. I just need your weight in your hometown tonight.
Yep.
And he spent 25 minutes making fun of me because I didn't know what his hometown was. It was one of those things, though. You know? I mean, but at the same time, like, I'm glad he's got his shit together now.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. You hate seeing, like, anyone go down a bad side.
Yeah, and, like, even though he was just being a dink to me, I'll never forget it. And it was, like, one of those experiences where I was like, yeah, Jeff Jarrett, like, made me sing Kumbaya with the Storm Kids,
Yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. Like, and that's the thing, right? Like, you'll get little memories and stuff. Like, I'm never gonna forget Samoa Joe explaining the shape weight to me.
Oh.
This was before it, like, had hit Canada.
Okay.
And he was talking about it, and so just picture Samoa Joe, but picture him doing the shape
have
weight.
one?
No, he was explaining it. And so just, like, seeing this, like, phenomenal athlete just sitting there looking like he's, like, air jerking off was phenomenal. I really cracked up over that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, how did your name come about? Why are you called What About Ivan?
That was, and I mean, I have, like, old letters even where it's, like, some people had written What About Ivan. So it's like, before I picked up a microphone, it was my name kind of deal. I was just going through some hard times and stuff, and it was just kind of like ranting and, like, doing the whole, like, what about me kind of deal. Like, just...
Was Raven angry you were stealing his shtick?
No, actually, no, Raven has no issues with that. No, but that was kind of it, and it was just, one of the wrestlers, Marky, he kind of was, like, calling me What About Ivan, and then when I'd meet people, that would just kind of be the nickname, right?
I gotcha.
And then when it came time for me to actually do something with wrestling, it was like, well, just stick with this,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of it, and it, set me apart a little ways, like, so it was a little bit of a different name, but still my legitimate name of Ivan,
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's where that all came from. It was just a nickname from before I started announcing, and it just carried over.
That's awesome, man. Have you ever had any ambition to like? Have you ever done anything in wrestling besides announcing? Like, have you worked sound? Have you wrestled? Have you refereed?
No, I've never done any of that. Well, I mean, I've done sound, but you know, for those small shows where it's kind of like you have to ring the bell, announce, do sound, like do everything.
Okay.
But oh wait, no, I did do sound the one show. It was really weird. I ended up getting double booked with another announcer for an event. It wasn't a PWA event, but and so somehow they booked 2 announcers, and so we both showed up, and they're like, hey, we're gonna go with him, and I'm like, you booked me, so I want my money. Like,
I hear ya.
Like, you know, I'm not gonna be hurt if you don't choose me, but I didn't waste. Yeah, I didn't waste my day for nothing. Like, you're gonna pay me, and so I did sound there, like helped out their sound guy and stuff, because like I'm there anyways.
Yeah, you
right?
might as well put yourself to use.
Yeah, and I mean, and that was a really big like positive for me because they went with him, but then afterwards, the promoters actually like gave me a hug, and they're like, we made the wrong decision.
Oh.
And I'm like, yep, you did. Like, and I mean, I knew it right from the beginning, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like, I know how good I am, and I know what quality I am.
Yeah.
And so, and that's one of the things, and I know, you know, it happens because a lot of times people are very, it's a close-knit group a lot of times, so someone will not hear about you or not know who you are kind of thing because you only work in like a certain area, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is like they might know another announcer from somewhere else, but just because they know him doesn't mean he's better.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing. I mean, if someone doesn't book me for something, I don't feel bad because I know my quality, I know how good I am. I'm not going to feel bad because someone else chose not to use me, right? And I mean, and that's the other thing too, right? Is sometimes like there's only so many weekends in a month, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd love to be everywhere. Like it'd be awesome if I could, you know, do like every show everywhere, like all over.
It's kind of a political minefield though too. Like, I mean, I know like MPW, like they just got rid of Mike the Ref and they brought in a brand new guy, and it's like, you know, sure, I'd love to go announce for MPW, but I don't think that it would look too keen on me in the RCW locker room, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, and that was something that I've always been straightforward about, is like, PWA is my home, like that's where I started, that's like, they're always first dibs kind of deal.
Yeah.
But that's not going to stop me from working anywhere else, because... and I make it very clear that it's not a political thing. I don't really care what your company is. I don't care who you are. It's, I'm doing this because I'm an announcer, because I want to announce. And if there's a weekend that's open and someone calls me up and is like, hey, you know, are you free this weekend? Yep. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
And that's it.
So you don't have any restrictions on you, like... Kurt's not going to get hot if you go and announce at another show in Edmonton?
No. The only way, and I mean legitimately, it makes sense, like if I skipped out on PWA to do a show,
of course,
because that's really douchey. But if there's another show out there, and if I have no other commitments, and you know, I'm doing it, I'm getting paid, it's whatever, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, I think he might get a little hot if I took you know, if I went to go work a show for free, you know?
Yeah.
Like...
Especially if he's paying...
Yeah, because, like, he's paying me, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know, you worked for them for free. But no, and a lot of times if I do go to other places, I typically am making more money than I do at PWA. But like I said, PWA is my home. It's my friends, it's my family, that's where I'm at, right? But yeah, any other place, I mean, if they want to pay me, at What About Ivan on every social media. But yeah, no, that's it. And you know, a lot of times, like, I'll even, if I am doing something, I'll let Kurt know.
Yeah.
And just out of a nicety thing, I'll be like, oh, hey, I'm doing this. Because yeah, like, I mean, I've announced for RCW a few times. I've even done some fill-in, not lately, but I guess like few years ago kind of thing, where they just needed someone to fill in for like a show here or there kind of thing, because like their regular guy was away.
Okay.
So I've done that, but yeah, for all of the other events like the roller derby, the MMA, all of that stuff, it's, you know, I'm What About Ivan, I do announcing, and it just happens that I do it everywhere.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, like I've been considering like trying to get into doing other things, mostly because I lost my job and need money. But yeah, no, it's one of those things, like once you, like, I've got, like, I feel like I have confidence in my wrestling announcing now. And it took a while.
Right.
And, I mean, at the beginning, the guy that was announcing before me, he was awful. Anyway, and one of the pieces of advice he gave me the first time I announced was, make sure that you don't outshine the boys or whatever, right? And so I went in there and I was real trepidatious and real just like quiety and like, and then after one show I was like, fuck that guy and his shitty advice. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give it my all, and worst case Ontario, they're like, you need to bring it down a bit, because I figured it's probably better to be told you need to bring it down a bit than you need to be it up.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the thing, when you look at a lot of the guys, a lot of the talent that's out there, I feel I could do like my absolute best ring announcing on the planet, but you still have guys like Michael Richard Blaze, who when he steps in that ring, it doesn't matter how good I am, he's still better as a wrestler, right? And that's the way it should be. You shouldn't feel like, oh, I have to pull it down because this wrestler's not good enough. No, sorry, if you're not good enough, too bad. Like, raise your game up. Like, you try harder, because I'm trying to make this show better. And you look at like any of the really great guys out there, right? You know, in the ring, I'll joke around with a lot of the guys that we have. Like, we'll feed off each other back and forth, and it's, you know, it's not because I'm trying to get myself over. It's not because I'm trying to do anything else. It's just because I'm trying to make the show entertaining. And these guys, they're professionals. They know how to do stuff.
Yeah, riff off you and stuff.
Exactly. And I mean, and they know what they're doing. Like, the guys that are out there that have been doing this for years, that, you know, the fans come out and they buy the pictures, they buy the t-shirts. There's a reason why they do that. That's because those guys are spectacular at what they do. And if you're out there as an announcer and you're not giving them a bright stage to come into, that's kind of like a shitty deal. Because the way I feel it is, like, kind of like I said from the start, like, where you set that bar at the start of the show, that's where the fans are going to be. I want the fans hyped, I want them excited, and I want that first wrestler through the curtain to know that he's ready to go.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I eventually, like, just told Alex, I was like, if my announcing is outshining the boys, then the boys need to step up their game, you know? Like...
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you know, we used to have a referee years ago who used to work out tons and, like, very ripped, big, and he was getting bigger than some of the guys. And someone made a comment about it. It's like, well, then maybe you should hit the gym more. Yeah. You know, like, because if this referee is making you look small, maybe you need to hit the gym.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a problem with the referee.
No, and that's 100% what it is.
It is one of those things, though. Like, typically the referees are like small.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it was a good thing, but just, you know, it's something you shouldn't complain about. Like, it's something you should aspire to, and And a lot of the people I've met throughout doing this, I mean, everyone just wants to put on a good show, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to, is everyone just wants the show to be good, because it doesn't matter where you're at, what company you're with, you want the show to be the best it can be, right? So it doesn't matter if you're in like a little town with 10 people in the audience, or if you're like center field at the Eskimos. Like, it's like, yeah, your crowd's different, but you still want to be the best. Doesn't matter, right? And that's it.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, you know what I want to ask you about is, I mean, we all know that wrestling is a show. Like, I don't try to kill the magic here, but it's a predetermined show. Do they give you the finishes over in PWA?
The way I like to do it, and I mean, this is, you know, it could depend on each person individually, you know. I'm by no means, you know, an instructor or anything. But unless there's something I need to know, where if like there's a chance that, say, someone's throwing a chair or something, like somewhere where I would have to move, I don't like to know what's going on.
So they don't tell you who the winners and losers are?
No.
Okay, yeah, no. I'm in the same boat. Like, I mean, the information's there. I could acquire it if I needed to, but unless there's going to be like a dusty finish or something, then it's usually, I just like to go off my emotions so I can react naturally, right? Like, if you got a new champion, it's like, holy shit, we got a new champion, you know? Obviously, you don't say holy shit on the microphone, but RCW, you can if you want to, but...
But yeah, no, that's kind of it. You know, I need the card, I need to know, like, what I need to say, but that's it. The rest of the show's just, it's a show, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that's, you know, kind of a testament to how good the workers are on those shows, right? Because if everyone puts together this event and you're out there and it's looking amazing, like, it gives you a much better feel for how things are going too. Because when you get to sit back, then you're sitting there as a fan, and you can kind of sit there and be like, I don't know if I like that, like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So do you ever like contribute like ideas to guys, like, as far as their intros and stuff are concerned?
Not typically. I mean, if someone asks me, especially with guys who are new, they'll usually ask me to, like, maybe critique them a little bit on stuff.
Okay.
And that's just because they know I've been around for so long, and just, you know, I've seen what works, what doesn't. And
I just meant, like, you had your
as
own,
far as if I had an idea and thought this needs to happen, I don't really think about it that way.
Yeah.
If something popped in my head, like, yeah, I'd probably mention it. But, you know, for the most part, yeah, as far as coming up with stuff, you know, the guys do that, and, you know, there's other people who do that stuff probably way better than I could.
Fair enough. And
as far as any interactions, that's usually comes up from the wrestlers themselves.
Okay.
So it's not something where I'll go, oh, you and I, we should do this, and, like, whatever.
Oh, no, I just meant, like, there's little, like, things that sometimes, like, I'll add to guys' intros. Like, we have Pride who comes out.
Okay.
Do you know, are you familiar with Pride?
I've heard about him, yeah.
Okay, well, he started coming out, and then eventually, instead of just being, like, making his way to the ring, hailing from the house on Paper Street, and weighing in at 120 pounds, Pride, I would say, bow down to Pride.
Oh, okay,
like,
stuff like that.
We had Dano Burns, and I called him, ladies and gentlemen, look up to the sky and pray to the god of Guinness, Dano Burns, right? Like,
yeah. Any stuff like that, I do, like, we do that, but it's usually I talk with the guys about
yeah,
stuff,
I always clear my ideas with people.
Yeah, for the most part, it kind of just flows. if something feels right, I'll try it. But yeah, I don't put too much thought into to what I'm going to do or say or react or anything. You know, like
You call it on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, like MRB, you know, throws his jacket at me all the time, and that became a thing because he did it once and it accidentally like hit me in the head, like one of the buttons on his jacket.
Oh, okay.
And so then the next time he did it, I flinched really bad because like I was expecting like, you know, and it wasn't that he meant to throw the jacket, but it was just the button snapped around and like really connected with me, right?
Okay.
So the next time, you know, he threw it and I flinched. And then, you know, now it's like I'm always flinching because I'm worried that this button's going to be coming at my face. And so, like, that's not planned. That just, it happened because of a reason. And it just, you know, just the way it comes out. It's, yeah.
So have you, like I was asking earlier, you said you hadn't wrestled or refereed or anything, but do you have any ambition to do anything like that? Like, has anybody ever pitched you like, oh, we should have a match with What About Ivan as my tag partner or something? Like,
you know, there's been talk and jokes, a lot of jokes about stuff, but I don't think anything too seriously. I know there's been a lot of talk with, when Force Pro was running. I don't know, were you around when they were?
No, I talked to Thaddeus, though. I recorded a podcast with Thaddeus, and unfortunately, like, this thing jostled around in my pocket or something, and it got deleted before I got home.
Oh, okay.
It was the most disappointing thing, but I was like, what, Force Pro Wrestling? What, are they all Jedis that wrestle there? Like,
yeah, and so with them, I did the announcing for them, but they were really pushing because they wanted me to be a manager there.
Oh, okay.
Just because of my personality, they thought it would be great if I could just, like, heel out on people.
Oh, okay.
And just lose it, and just, like, and they pitched that, and I thought about it for a bit, but I'm like, that's really tough because there's guys who are really good at managing, and I've never really wanted to. So the fact that, like, you're pitching me to do something that I'm kind of like,
so
I don't know.
You don't really have any ambition to do anything over and above announcing then?
No. And I mean, as far as any wrestling goes, like, I'm not trained for it. So
Okay.
I wouldn't want, you know, I wouldn't basically want to do anything because I'm not trained.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to make the show look bad wherever I'm at.
Would you be willing to train if they asked you to?
You know what? Like, I feel I probably would, if it made sense to. Like, if there was some reason behind it.
But it's not like your lifelong dream to wrestle or anything.
No. I mean, I watched wrestling as a kid. I still kind of watch it now and again.
Okay.
But you know, I think it was the same thing. Like, every kid watching it is like, yeah, I want to be a wrestler. But then you're like, I'm not going to be a wrestler.
Did you ever do any backyarding?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have, right? But, yeah, I mean, that's the closest I think we ever came was when Drew Dolby was a heel manager. And he was really a big heel. Like, everyone hated him, and I hated him as well.
He was the ring announcer?
Like, way back he was.
Okay.
And then he became a manager. And he was a manager for quite a while, actually. And he was absolute heel. Like, I hated the guy. And so he and I would, like, just kind of snark back at each other, like, when we were in front of the crowd, right? And then he kind of trained and did stuff for a little bit, and then he was starting to have matches as well. And he would do these, like, stupid, like, I pick my own opponent, and he would always pick someone, like, way smaller and, like, weaker or whatever, right? And And he and I still this whole time would like beak off. Like I wouldn't back down from him. He wouldn't back down from me.
Were
like,
you announcing at the time, or were you just?
Oh, I was announcing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
and
like,
were you doing this over the microphone, like?
Sometimes I'd make little comments and stuff to him.
Oh, like take a jab at him or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like he would do the same thing back at me. Like it was just we had that dynamic, right? Like me being like a really good guy, him being like this real heel, like, and it really clicked really well. The crowd really reacted to it. And there was this one show where he came out and he was gonna do pick his own opponent.
Gotcha, I see where
and
this is
so
going.
he walked around the ring and he was pointing at the fans. He's like, I don't fight the obese. He's like, I don't fight like the idiots. And like he's pointing at all these people and making fun of whatever was like standing out about them, right? And so he came to the announce table and there was Tex Gaines, Kurt Sorock, and myself, and then a security guard there. So we're all at the announce table. And Tex at the time, I think, had a broken leg or something. So Tex was sitting down, and Drew's like, I don't fight the handicapped. And then he just kind of like made fun of like, I think Kurt's height or something. And, and then he looked at me.
Yeah.
And he didn't say anything. He just stared at me. And you could just feel the crowd, right? And he's like, I think I found my opponent. And the crowd lost their minds. And because like we had always made it a thing where like explaining why I don't fight is just because it's in the rules. Like an announcer can't fight, right? And so like I stood up and like this whole time, like for years we've hated each other. The crowd hates him. So I stood up and I looked at Kurt and I was like, like, let me fight. And Kurt's like, yeah. Crowd loses it. Like they're going nuts. Like this is it. Like Drew's gonna get knocked the F out. Like Ivan's gonna do it. And so like I take my suit jacket off. I stand up and I'm like, okay, first punch is yours. We're still like on the floor, right?
Okay.
And I stick my chin out and I close my eyes and I just put my arms on like, first punch is yours. And I wait. And so I didn't see it until I watched it later. But what he does is he like winds up like he's just gonna crack me. And then he like reaches over my shoulder and grabs the security guard and has the match with him.
That was awesome.
And it was like, the crowd reaction was so nuts because like I didn't see any of this happen, right? Because my eyes were still closed, but you could hear it. And like the crowd went from being so hyped to being so angry because like their chance to see this guy get knocked out like dropped. And now it was like he had like some quick little shitty match with like a security guard. And it was so brilliant. But that was like the closest I've ever come to an actual match or anything.
Right on.
Yeah, I've never, it'd be cool to do, but at the same point, like I do pride myself, like I do think I carry myself very professionally.
Yeah.
And because of that, I wouldn't want to go on a show unless I felt comfortable wrestling.
Yeah.
Like I would, at the very least, I'd want to be practicing and training and doing all that for months. Like, there's no way I'd want to just get in the ring and do it. Because I think that's kind of a disservice to just everyone,
That makes sense.
So
is that like, what's the coolest like night that you've had announcing? Where you look back and you're like, I wouldn't give that night for anything.
The one night that there was the halftime show at the Eskimos, and we did wrestling, and it was Al Snow versus Jay Lethal.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
And I was the ring announcer for it, and it was amazing because like they have like these cameras that come right in your face, and you look up and you're on the Jumbotron, and there's like all of these like thousands and thousands of people and stuff. Like that was just amazing. That night was probably one of my favorites. I used to like doing the MMA because we the sound guy and myself came up with this really cool entrance that we would do, where they would shoot lasers around the cage, and they'd have a fog machine and like all these lights and stuff, and this like tense music going, but it was empty, like no one in the cage. And then what people didn't see was that myself and the ring card girls would be sneaking near the cage, but like hunched down so you couldn't see us.
Oh, okay.
And so like lasers, lights, and then they'd snap every light in the arena off for like 5 seconds. And so like pitch black, we'd all run in the cage, and then they'd hit the lights, all the main lights come on, and then there's just myself and the ring card girls around me standing in there.
Do you have any good stories about the ring card girls?
No. I was actually dating someone at the time, so I never had anything, never did anything with any of them, but one of them was really nice. I think I had a cold one night, and instead of partying, she just like hung out with me all night.
Oh yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. Like, because
yeah.
I was like, no, I have a cold. I'm just like gonna hang out. And so yeah, we just kind of sat around. But no, for the most part, I mean, a lot of people. I find that people see that, you know, how you carry yourself, how that you belong where you are.
Yeah.
And that changes a lot of people's opinion, right?
Yeah, I find that gratitude goes a long way in wrestling, and you know, just being grateful to be there, just trying to get along with everybody, like.
Yeah, and I mean, and that can be tough in some situations.
For sure.
Like, you know, in every sport, in everything, there's egos, and there's, so that can be really challenging. But yeah, I mean. I always try to remember that, you know, what I do is something that there's probably a ton of people out there who wish they would have that, or, you know, like, it's not like I'm on WWE or anything, but still, like, just being able to do some of this stuff. I mean, there's people who would have loved to have done it, but never got the opportunity. So I always try and remember that, just to, you know, stay a little grounded, right? And just remember how cool it is that I get to do all this stuff.
I 100% completely agree with you. Do you have any plugs for upcoming shows, appearances? Where can the people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, at What About Ivan on every social media ever. Just, they can reach me on there. You know, in March, we have the 18th anniversary of the PWA. Gonna have Tyson Kidd coming out, and Jeff Cobb is gonna be there as well.
Awesome.
So should be a good time.
What's the date of that show?
March 23rd.
March 23rd.
And then in April, I feel bad because I can't remember the date.
13th.
But is it 13th?
The YEG
Yeah,
show?
I was going to talk about that YEG. So, yeah, they're doing that to raise money for kids with cancer, which is a great reason to do wrestling. So if anyone's listening, I highly recommend you support those guys and buy some tickets.
Yeah, I saw the belt that they're giving away.
Yeah, for community leader, I think, or something like that it's called. But yeah, whoever raises the most money.
The guy that's running the operation or whatnot, he brought it to Beercade for the last pay-per-view.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's where I won that big AJ Styles over there.
Oh, crazy, yeah.
Actually, I didn't win it. Gunnar won it, but Gunnar had to leave early, so he gave me his ticket.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But yes, I can't hate on raising money for cancer. Raising money for the research against cancer.
Right, yeah, because you love cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh no, I appreciate it. I like I say, I mean, I feel like kind of an idiot, but especially after this conversation we just had. But I was worried because, you know, every once in a while I'd be like, oh, hashtag manufactured ring announcer heat, just as a joke or whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go say hi to What About I. You might think I'm a douchebag, right?
Well, I think most people are, so.
Okay, well, yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. And definitely check out What About Ivan.
Yep.
At all the PWA events. And if there's any other events, I'm sure that he'll plug them on his social media accounts.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome, bud.
Cool.
Thank
all
you.
right.